Today, it's October 30th, 2023. A deadly mass shooting happened in Lewiston, Maine last week, claiming the lives of 18 people and seriously wounding 13 others, in the sixth deadly shooting for this year, in the state of Maine alone. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould and welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban.
According to multiple media outlets, Robert Cards, an Army National Guard reservist, who has now been reported to have mental health problems lately, walked into a bowling alley in Lewiston, state of Maine, called Just-in-Time Recreation, and started shooting. According to Lewiston police authorities, emergency dispatchers began to receive 911 calls reporting a male shooter at 6:56 p.m. By 7:08 p.m., calls started pouring in about an active shooter inside the billiards hall at Shemingis Bar and Grill restaurant, about 4 miles south of the bowling alley. In a span of 12 minutes, the assailant hit two separate facilities and shot to death 15 people, of which 3 died later at a local hospital from gunshot wounds. Investigators of the crime says the weapon used in the shooting rampage was a Ruger SFAR chambered for high-powered .308 caliber ammunition, according to police sources. They now believe the assault rifle was purchased legally. The .308 caliber bullet is favored by military snipers firing at long distance and for big game hunters. It is larger and more powerful than the regular ammunition carried in the rifles of soldiers and SWAT teams. One of the challenges in identifying victims at the two crime scenes in last week's shooting was that nearly all the shooting victims were shot in the head, rendering some unrecognizable, according to law enforcement sources who talked to CNN. In mid-July, the New York State Police were called to Camp Smith in Cortland, New York, the military base where Robert Card served, because he was acting belligerently and intoxicated, and brought Card to a nearby hospital where he was treated for suspected intoxication. According to sources obtained by CNN, Card's encounter with the New York State Police and his National Guard superiors occurred just 10 days after he purchased a high-powered rifle at a Maine gun store. But by Friday evening, October 27th at 7:45 p.m., the Lewiston shooting suspect, Robert Cards, was found dead. According to Lewiston Public Safety Commissioner Michael Shonshuk, he added that the suspect died of self-inflicted wound. His body was found near the Androscoggin River in the Lisbon Falls area. During the more than 48 hours manhunt for the suspect, Lewiston, Maine, and the neighboring towns were placed on a shelter-in-place lockdown for everybody's safety. The youngest victim of the shooting was a 14-year-old, and the oldest was 76 years old. The victims' names are now known. The number of people who were killed on that day in Lewiston mass shooting surpassed the Uvalde school in Texas, which happened last year. After the suspect body was found dead, the shelter-in-place order in the big part of Maine has now been lifted, and the restrictions for recreational hunting has now been lifted by authorities. Our hearts and prayers goes out to the family of the people who perished in that horrible incident.
In the Fulton County, Georgia RICO case, where Donald Trump and 17 others are defendants relating to wide-ranging efforts in several states to reverse the 2020 presidential election result, there are now 4 defendants who have pleaded guilty for their role in the conspiracy. The most recent to plead guilty and agreed to conditions for non-jail time punishment with County District Attorney Fannie Willis was a younger lawyer in the fraudulent claims and false hearings about a stolen election. The lawyer, Gina Ellis, who was on the team of Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, were the 3 lawyers who went around several battleground states, including Arizona, filing lawsuits in court based on no real evidence that Trump won and that he was cheated by election officials. The 4 who have already pleaded guilty include Scott Hall, who is a Georgia bail bondsman, Trump White House attorney for the re-election campaign, Kenneth Chesbrough, campaign lawyer Sidney Powell, and now Gina Ellis, who worked alongside with Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. In a tearful reading of her statement before Judge McAfee, a Fulton County Superior Court judge, Gina Ellis admitted to her part of the conspiracy. Here's a video from Midas Touch Network of Gina Ellis reading her statement before the judge and the commentary from Ben Meiselas of the Midas Touch Network.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court. As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people.
A tearful Gina Ellis pleading guilty to a felony count in the Fulton County, Georgia RICO case against her. A total of 19 co-defendants, of course, including Donald Trump. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. This is big, folks, and it is breaking news. Gina Ellis, another one of Donald Trump's lawyers, is now pleading guilty. Karen, I want to get your full analysis. How big is this? How it relates to the other guilty pleas that we've seen over the past few weeks. Before getting your legal analysis, I also want to show the moment where Gina Ellis also pled guilty, in addition to her reading that apology letter that you heard right there. Let's play the other clip.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea, which means the state and your attorneys have reached a recommendation to make to the court?
Yes.
Do you understand that the court is not bound by that recommendation and could sentence you to the maximum penalty for this charge?
Yes.
Do you understand if the court does not follow the state's recommendation, then you can withdraw your guilty plea and move forward with a jury trial?
Yes.
Do you understand that the conditions of this plea involves 5 years of probation, that you pay $5,000 of restitution to the Georgia Secretary of State within 30 days, and it's in my understanding that you're asking to be treated as a first offender?
Yes.
Do you understand that a special conditions of this probation is that you complete 100 hours of community service, that you write an apology letter to the citizens of the state of Georgia, which you have already done, and the state will put that into evidence as State's Exhibit 1 for the court? That you testify truthfully at all hearings or trials involving co-defendants, that you have no communication with co-defendants, witnesses, or the media until all cases have been closed.
Yes.
That you must continue to provide additional recorded statements and affidavits to the state as required, that you must also continue to provide any requested documents or evidence subject to any lawful privileges asserted in good faith, that you shall not post anything on social media, including through any agents, about this case until the conclusion of all trials and appeals, that you must continue to fully cooperate with prosecutors, included but not limited to participating in interviews with prosecutors, appearing for evidentiary hearings, and assisting in pretrial matters. Do you understand that these are the conditions of the recommendation that the state is making to the court?
I do.
It is my understanding that, have you gone over the first offender status with your attorneys?
I have.
So there you have it, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. We wake up yet again today to more news that one of Donald Trump's co-defendants has pled guilty.
We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. After weeks of not having a legitimate third person in the presidential line of succession, the U.S. Congress now has a new Speaker of the House of Representatives. After 3 attempts by Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, and 1 attempt of Majority Whip Steve Scalise, and 1 attempt by Tom Emmer, all known MAGA Republicans failed to come up with 218 votes from the Republican conference side of the House. Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana was elected by the majority party as the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. The vacancy in the House was created after Representative Kevin McCarthy was removed from his position by the Republicans, with some Democrats also voting to remove McCarthy. It was triggered by a motion on the floor by MAGA hardliner from Florida, Matt Gaetz. Representative Mike Johnson was the 4th candidate for speakership who was acceptable to 218 of his fellow Republicans. The conservative congressman from Louisiana, who many in the mainstream media dub as one of the architects in the House of rejecting Joe Biden's election. Johnson was also among those who voted no in certifying President Biden's election, even after the January 6th Capitol attack. The biggest task the House is presently faced with is the spending bill, or the National Appropriations Bill, that is set to expire on November 15 next month. We'll see what they will do, as it keeps all federal employees in suspense and stress as they face another possible government shutdown as Christmas is approaching.
There is no end in sight, at least in the short term, of the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza territory in Israel. Air bombings and ground assault by the Israeli forces in Gaza has now claimed the lives of more than 7,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children, according to multiple media outlets and as reported by the health commissioner in the Gaza Strip. The United Nations resolution proposed by the United States to halt or postpone the assault did not pass at the UN Security Council, as Security Council member Russia and China vetoed the resolution. The Biden administration fervently asked Israel through Secretary Blinken that the assault be postponed, as humanitarian situation really requires that food, water, and medicine flow into Gaza before any assault or ground assault by Israel. Israel rejected this, and also in the United Nations Security Council, one of the members, Russia, was very adamant in refusing that the vote of no on the resolution. So the Biden administration's request for the benefits of the Palestinians, 2 million of them who are living in Gaza, had been rejected by the UN Security Council. We are going to show you some of the video footage obtained from other media outlets concerning what is happening in the Gaza. Watch this.
As Israeli forces begin ground operations inside Gaza, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the goal is to destroy the Hamas military and governing capabilities and bring the hostages home. The death toll in Gaza has surpassed 7,000 people. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is growing, with communications essentially cut off. Here's ABC News with the story.
Explosions seen in the northern Gaza Strip Saturday evening as Israel enters what it is saying is its second stage in its war on Hamas. Earlier in the day, Israel Defense Forces saying it expanded its ground operation in Gaza, sending in tanks and infantry backed by massive strikes from the air and sea. The IDF releasing video, it says, shows Israeli tanks operating in northern Gaza. In a statement, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the commanders and soldiers are now fighting on enemy territory, knowing that the people and the leadership of the people are behind them. ABC's Ian Pannell spoke with one of Netanyahu's advisors who said Israel will continue to put pressure on Hamas.
We've seen that pressure rise, and it will continue to rise in the coming days and weeks until we achieve our goal, which is the total dismantlement of the Hamas military machine and the end of their political structure in Gaza.
The Israeli military says it struck 150 targets in the Gaza Strip overnight, destroying tunnels and underground infrastructure. They say several Hamas leaders were killed, including Asim Abu Rakaba, who they say took part in planning the brutal October 7th Hamas terror attack on Israel. Netanyahu addressed the nation on Saturday, saying the war against Hamas will be long and difficult. He also met with the families of hostages still being held by Hamas, assuring them their release is part of Israel's military goals. But fears are mounting that Israel's ramped-up military operations in Gaza could endanger the hostages.
We are very worried. We don't know that if the whole military operation take all these hostages under consideration, that nobody will be injured.
Meanwhile, the situation in Gaza is growing more dire. Phone and internet service reportedly cut off. A spokesperson for the World Health Organization says the communications blackout is making it impossible to reach the injured. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News, New York.
وعيط وصوت وخايف خايف كتير من كتر الخوف شخيت على حالي ولعوا ايش اسوي كرست النزعة ولا جال النزعة
اجري واقع يا بني وهذول يا ويلي غير هيك انجرب وصرت اعيط واصوت وين رحنا شربنا ما شفنا لها زنانه ضربت عاودوا كمان ضربت كمان مره قلت راح الدور هاي دارنا زي ما انت شايف وهي الدار هذه انا قاعده فيها انا والاولاد المعوقين فيها 3 اوض بحمام بمطبخ وهذه كلها والله يا بني تدمرت ايش اسوي ايش بدنا وين بدنا نروح الليله
طب هذا مش حرام عليهم اللي زينا واللي زيها واللي زيه احنا معاقين يعني هذا اصلا وضع انساني يعني ان الحق مش على اسرائيل اصلا الحق على الدول العربيه اللي بتعامل اللي زينا وبتستهتر فينا.
In the West Philippine Sea, the volatile situation continues as now it has reached a dangerous, provocative situation as 13 Chinese Coast Guard vessels have been hindering the supply effort of the Philippine government to resupply the marine outpost in the grounded vessel BRP Sierra Madre, located in the second Tama Shoal of the Spratly Group in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine government continues to protest the provocative behavior of China. We are going to show you the most recent encounter from a video by a Filipino media videographer who was at the scene of this encounter. What's this?
Tensions flaring once again in the South China Sea after vessels from China and the Philippines collided twice in disputed waters over the weekend. The run-ins are the most recent in a string of confrontations in the past few months, which have been concentrated near to the Spratly Islands.
An escalation of a diplomatic row in the disputed South China Sea after Beijing and Manila traded barbs over the collision of their vessels off the contested Second Thomas Shoal on Sunday. Both sides have filed diplomatic protests and released videos to support their accusations. In a video released by the Philippines, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel was filmed brushing the side of a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, reportedly causing some damage to the boat. The vessel had been resupplying a former warship grounded on the shoal and used as a base for Philippine Marines. Manila has labeled the collision as intentional and a blatant violation of international law, repeating its call for Beijing to stop its provocative actions.
As we have repeatedly said in the past, continued Chinese blocking and interference by Chinese vessels with our regular and routine rotation and resupply missions RORE to BRP Sierra Madre may lead to disastrous results.
The Philippine government views the latest aggression by China as a blatant violation of international law. China has no legal right or authority to conduct law enforcement operations in our territorial waters and in our exclusive economic zone. We are taking this incident seriously at the highest levels of government.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos has ordered his Coast Guard to investigate the incident. The Chinese Coast Guard released their own footage of the incident as well. They claim that the Philippine vessel had ignored repeated warnings and deliberately provoked trouble by crossing the bow of the Chinese ship, resulting in the collision. China has since urged the Philippines to take its concerns seriously and stop the dangerous maneuvers in the South China Sea.
中方再次敦促菲方重视中方严正关切，信守承诺，停止在海上滋事挑衅，停止采取危险举动，停止对中国的攻击抹黑，尽快拖走非法坐滩的军舰，避免破坏南海的和平稳定，损害本地区国家的共同利益。
China also maintained that its Coast Guard was lawfully blocking the boat and accused it of transporting illegal construction materials to the warship. Beijing has lodged a complaint over the trespassing of Philippine vessels and warned Manila to stop its groundless attacks and the smear campaign against China. The incident has sparked international condemnation, with the Canadian and Japanese embassies in Manila expressing their concern and reiterating support for the Philippines. The US reaffirmed its support for Manila in what it calls China's harassment in the contested waters and labeled Beijing's actions as dangerous and unlawful. But China has criticized the US for ignoring the facts.
美国为实现自身地缘政治私利，怂恿支持配合菲律宾在仁爱礁侵权挑衅，严重违反国际法和国际关系基本准则，严重损害中方的主权和权益，严重危害地区和平稳定。地区国家对此看得十分清楚。中国维护自身合法权利的决心和意志是坚定的，美方的图谋注定不可能得逞。
Manila and Beijing have a long history of maritime disputes in the South China Sea, both seeking to assert their territorial claims in the highly strategic waters. While Washington has also sought to assert itself in the region, and the waters are part of a wider, ongoing power struggle between Washington and Beijing.
I wish we had more time. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould.
And I'm Sam Buban. God bless your week.
We use headphones as a part of our everyday lives. Whether we're at work, getting exercise, meditating, in transit, studying, practicing, or relaxing.
Hi, I'm Ryan Sway, the founder of Aircom. I would like to introduce the world's first wireless airflow audio earbuds. As a festival and a concert junkie, I really enjoy the live experience of being there and feeling the music. When we started developing Airflow, our goal was to reproduce that live experience using earbuds.
The problem with traditional headphones is that the speakers are located inside of the earpiece, literally giving you centimeters before the audio hits your eardrum.
What Aircom is doing, they're the first company to actually address the fact that there needs to be a space involved associated with having the sound waves expand fully.
The difference between traditional headphones and Aircom audio is that the air tube gives you 8 times more space, allowing the sound waves to fully develop before they actually hit your eardrums. And this gives it a much more live, natural sound, just like in a recording studio.
It's real nice that someone actually addressed the physics associated with how sound comes out.
The challenge we had was to create an earbud with enough airspace for the sound to fully develop and breathe. Unfortunately, traditional earbuds are about the size of a jelly bean, and there's just not enough airspace. However, that changed when we developed Airflow Audio. Airflow uses an air tube to deliver 6 to 8 times more airspace than traditional earbuds. The end result is a true live listening experience, just like you're at a festival or a concert. We also added magnets to the back of the earpieces so you can wear it around your neck when you're not using it.
Being that the drivers are 8 inches from the earpiece, the magnets do not affect the integrity of the sound at all.
The orange line represents the frequency transmitting through the wire to the speaker, which then converts to the blue sound wave that develops more as it travels up the air tube, producing a balanced, full body and live listening experience.
Another really cool feature is that these earbuds are sweat-proof and water-resistant because they're coated with a super hydrophobic nanotechnology. So now you can be on a skateboard or riding a motorcycle and listen to music as if you were watching a live show or actually in a recording studio.
We're coming to you for help in bringing these unparalleled earbuds to market.